Hello, everybody. Just thank you for being here on time for the meeting. I just wanted to let you know that we had some logistics challenges here at Pinole Valley High School, in that we still had students in the library when we got here. So we're directing people up to room D212. We're still at the same physical location, so you can join online or come up to room D212 to be live for the meeting in person. But we are behind, and we'll get started as quickly as we can. Or contract committee. The committee chairs would like you to know that we're going to convene at 5:12. So thank you very much for your patience. We did have to move locations because there were students in the location we had originally booked, and of course they get priority. So we moved to room D212 at Pinole Valley High School room. If anybody's on site and wants to join us here. So 5:12, please.
I think that's good. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I'm sorry that we were a little delayed. We had to move, same location, just different area. We are now in room
212.
212.
D212, yeah.
D212. Thank you very much, community. Dr. Hurst, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. I'm gonna bring up the agenda. Yes, please.
It's 212, Mary.
D212. D212.
Okay, I'm gonna be doing roll call.
Thank you.
Clerk, chair, the trustee Smith Folds.
Good evening, everyone present.
Here, not yet. Mary Kitchen, representing SSA.
Present.
Thank you. Kristen Persley, representing ASTU. Mr. Ryan, right?
Present, yeah.
I can. Shanae Vaughn, representing Teamsters.
Present.
John Sabella, representing ATR. Present. And I'm the board president. I'm Carrie. Dr. Hurst, you here?
I'm here.
Wonderful. All right, everybody's here except for Mr. DeLeon.
Very good. Thank you so much, President Gonzalez Hoy. We're going to skip introductions because the president did it, which was great. Thank you very much. We need to, is there any public comment?
There's no public comment.
Thank you. And there's no public comment online. So we're going to move on to the approval of the minutes for April 17th, 2023. Can I get a motion or can I approve the minutes without objections? Any objections? Seeing none, minutes from April 17th, 2023 have been approved. Purpose and outcome of the committee. The purpose of the committee is to look at each department collaboratively with union and community partners to find savings in the budget. The outcome will be a collaborative budget that reflects district priorities and fiscal responsibilities and accountability. Vision and update. President Gonzalez Hoy.
Thank you, Commissioner Schultz. I don't have any updates. We are gonna hear from Dr. McIntyre today around the budget, so he'll give any updates on the budget.
Thank you. Structure and process of the committee. Dr. Hurst.
There's nothing that has changed. It's still the same 4 buckets unless you know.
Thank you so much. We are now moving to agenda item number 5, budget presentation and review. Dr. McIntyre, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. It's an honor to be here with the committee today. I do have some information to share that's going to be consistent with what the board and community will hear at the May 17th board meeting.
Hold on, Dr. McIntyre, does he need to mute, sir? Okay, Dr. McIntyre, will you mute your computer for a minute so we won't get any, reverb?
Absolutely.
You might want to move to this table. Since the hour now. Thank you.
And may I have the ability to share, please?
Absolutely. Go for it, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. McIntyre, can you tell everyone who you are?
Absolutely. It's an honor to be here with everybody tonight. My name is Robert McIntyre. I'm the Associate Superintendent of Business Services. Tonight, I'm here in a supporting role for the committee. Should there be any technical questions regarding, budget strings, that sort of thing. And then separately, I'm also here to provide the updated financial status of the district for stakeholders. So we know what we're working toward, the problem we're trying to solve. It's an honor to be here with you all this evening.
Thank you.
So tonight, hopefully you can see, I'm not sharing, okay, share. There we go. Okay, so tonight I'm going to be discussing with you I'm going to share with you the third interim report. And so this is essentially the actual financials through the end of April. So we have our true actual financial, our labor and non-labor costs through the end of April. And then we project through the end of this year and for the 2 subsequent years, because county oversight requires us to demonstrate our financial status for the current year plus 2 years, so over a 3-year period, to demonstrate financial solvency. It is a little bit unusual to do a third interim report. The only time you actually do a third interim report is if back in March, when we do the second interim report, if we have a negative or qualified in second interim report. And since we self-certified as qualified at the second interim report, that required us to do the third interim report before the end of April. I'm sorry, before the end of May. There's a lot on this sheet, so please don't panic. I'm going to talk you through it. We do like to show where we are historically from the beginning over time to how we got to where we are right now. And so you can see, for example, our enrollment being updated over time. So when we did our adopted budget, we thought our enrollment for this year would be 25,932. And first interim was updated to 25,697. And now we're settling closer to 25,735. So we're, each month we have more attendance data. We're able to kind of narrow in on what we expect it to actually land at. Another area that's really important for us is that ADA, that average daily attendance. When we planned the year, we actually used a number that I never in my wildest dreams thought would be too high for budget development. We used 92.35. And the reason we use that is this district had a historic average between 93.5 and 95.5. So we felt really good, like we're being conservative, but not punitively conservative. We developed the budget at 92.35% average daily attendance. So that means we expected students to be in their seats 92.35% of the year. So for example, the year is 180 school days. We expected students to be in their seat, say 171 of those days. So that would be a good way to think about that. And what we found out is that we were not alone in experiencing a far lower attendance rate, which actually drives down our enrollment. So we're seeing our attendance rate being closer to 90.6%. That is in line with statewide averages and countywide averages. So we're not unique. This is a negative side effect of living in a post-COVID world. So these factors don't necessarily impact our LCFF revenue this year as much as they do in our future years. So 23, 24, and 24, 25. So we just want to make sure we're being true and honest and updating and sharing that information. So right now, using the LCFF calculator, we expect $331.2 million in revenue. Federal revenue is dropping. And there are reasons for that. Most of our federal revenues, we can only recognize when we have expenditures against them. So you think, like, for example, our ESSER dollars, those emergency COVID dollars we got, we can only recognize the expense the revenue when we have an expense charged against it. And so there are some expenses that we thought we were going to be charging into ESSER 3 that we weren't, that have lowered that revenue dollars. And there's also been some offsetting increase in state special ed dollars that have decreased the amount that we're spending in federal revenues. Doesn't mean we won't spend it, just means we're not spending it this year. And it's actually going to help our long-term solvency situation.
So there you see that other state revenue offset, because the state did increase the amount that they're giving us through the special ed apportionment, and then minor adjustments to local revenue. So what you see from second interim to third interim is just a minor change in revenue of $253,000. I know for those of us in the real world, that's a lot of money, but when we're talking about a $500 million budget, that's a relatively small amount. Now, we're gonna see more changes on the expense side of the budget. Remember, we're talking about both the restricted and unrestricted side of the budget, the whole general fund. And so we look at this side of the budget, we see our projected salaries have gone up. So we knew that we were at the bargaining table and we made a rough estimate. We thought we'd come in, for example, certificated salaries about 163 million. And that was adjusted up to 167 million. And now we're projecting it's going to be closer to $170.1 million by the end of the year. So we had an adjustment upward above our estimates. So that's important to recognize. And you'll see very clearly where that is in just a second, because it's not spread all over. It's actually kind of in one particular area of the budget. Similarly, classified salaries, the amounts that we were estimating where we thought where budget thought we would land, when we settled with labor, was lower than where we actually settled. And so the certificated, classified, and employee benefits, we have to true up, right? So we came to our settlement agreement. Now we're truing up and feeling the true cost of those settlements. And I say true cost because we've done the retro checks. And so we know where we're landing on these things very, very closely. Books and supplies, the amount that we thought we were going to spend this year, we thought we were spending starting the year that we were going to spend $43.7 million. We made a lot of cuts in the books and supplies area because we were trying to make capacity for our salary increases. And so we went from that 43.7 down to 31.4. We may have not been able to cut as much as we planned. There was a couple of contracts that were multi-year contracts that we thought we'd be able to cut out, and we won't be able to cut till next year. That had forced us to push this number back up. And we're also getting some contracts that really services started this school year, but we're just bringing the contracts to board. These are mostly school site contracts. And of course, if they receive the service, we're gonna have to pay for them. And so that's part of why you're seeing that number bump up. Similarly, we're seeing very similar things in the all other operating services. Now, we thought that number was going to come in at roughly $76 million at the beginning of the year, and that number's gone up. That number has gone up primarily because we have not been able to hire legally required people for special ed services. So these are dollars that we thought we would have in the ones, twos, and threes, but they ended up in the fives because we had to outsource. So there's large expenditures there, and that continues to increase. Remember, the amounts you see in the books and supplies and the all other operating expenses, those are experiencing external inflationary pressures. So they're not so controlled by COLA or local negotiations. And then we have reductions to what we're spending in capital outlay and other outgo. And so what we see is that we have a shift or essentially an increased expenditures of 6.1 million. So we offset with that increased revenue. We see we're having a negative impact of fund balance of $5.9 million in the general fund. When we look across the multi-year projection, please understand that we're finishing the work on this at 4:45. So I'm going to point to a couple of things that will be cleaned up in the next 2 days. So it would be slightly different than what you see at the board meeting, but the overall numbers are correct. And so you see where we are for what's the big changes to what you've seen at the last interim is really when we look at the unrestricted general fund, we see an increase in contribution to restricted programs. So this is an increase in special education. We've seen a $3 million increase to special ed contribution. Now, keep in mind, we had an increase from adopted to first interim, we saw an increase. There was no increase at second interim. And now we're seeing another increase now. And so when you add $3.2 million to the contribution this year, well, that's going to go on. So our cost, so when you put that over 3 years, it's like a $10 million increase. So we thought our target was $19.8 million. You see that transfer in from Fund 17, that was what we were really shooting at to kind of, well, we're gonna have to add this essentially $10 million to encroachment onto that number. And so when we project our salaries forward on the unrestricted side of the budget, our benefits, our books and supplies, and our other services and operating expenses, we project all those forward, what we saw, even after we took the benefit of indirect costs, was that we were going to be short. Okay, that's not my cursor. So when you look in year two, I don't know whoever's controlling that cursor over there. So when you look at year two, you see the ending fund balance of $12.5 million and the ending fund balance in year three of $10.6 million. Well, our reserve for economic uncertainty is $14.3 million. So what I'm going to have to do is transfer in early about $2 million from Fund 17 and from 23-24, unless we find more cuts. Now, we're limited on the cuts we can make to the actual natural attrition, so people who choose to leave the organization and they happen to be leaving from the right spots, or additional contracts we can cut, which would be services, mostly services for students. And so just recognizing that we're gonna have some more adjustments out of Fund 17 for the third interim to bring us up to that $14.5 million in the ending fund balance for 23-24, and then similarly another $4 million in 24-25 out of Fund 17 to bring us up, which would increase the amount we need for our fiscal solvency plan to avoid that transfer. So what we're showing is those transfers in Fund 17 are your placeholder for the cuts we're trying to make. Because if we don't, we have to tap somewhere for it, right? So here's the combined general fund. This essentially shows the amount that we're going to be transferring out of Fund 17, that we have to increase the transfer out of Fund 17 to make it up. So $3.7 million in 23-24 or more cuts. And then $5.5 million in 24-25, which will exhaust Fund 17 just about completely. Leave about $7 million left in it. So not an improvement in our picture for a couple reasons. The biggest one though is just the growth in our special ed costs. And so I think, just from a CFO advice to the governing team would be, it's probably time that we start talking about how we're going to partner internally and externally to look at the way we're running our special ed programs. If there are ways that we can meet the needs of our highest need students with a little better cost of payment. I know I'm not the bearer of great news tonight, and I will send out a revision tomorrow that moves those last couple of moves around. I apologize. I do want to thank the team who worked feverishly to get it this far before the meeting tonight. We were actually supposed to have it for solutions today, and I'm going to be sending this out to solutions tomorrow as well. So everybody has it, and I'll make myself available for one-on-one meetings, both to the board and anybody on solutions to talk through and answer any questions they have. Happy to answer questions then.
President Gonzalez, question?
Yes, thank you, Clerk. Chair, I always have trouble there. Can I stick to chair? Is that cool? Okay.
Call me whatever you want, Frank.
Dr. McIntyre, thank you to you and your team. Question for you on the third year out. So that's when we're supposed to hit Fund 17, which now, if I'm hearing you correctly, we might do that earlier, but I still see that there is an ending fund balance of 29 million. Couldn't we use that instead of Fund 17?
So a portion of those 18 million of that is restricted.
Oh, 18 out of the 29.
Correct. And so what you have is that 50, see where it's that line F and then subline D, reserve for economic uncertainty, 3%.
Yeah.
We're $5.5 million short of funding that required 3% reserve for economic uncertainty after we set aside the assigned fund balance on the restricted Senate budget. So that's we're just shy of what we're legally required to have to meet that 3% reserve in year three, and we're 3.7 million short of that in year 23-24.
Couldn't we use the unrestricted side of that, the 11 million? If 18 are restricted, couldn't we use the other 11?
So if you. We're looking at.
Sorry, I'm looking at line E. For the ending fund balance,
Correct. So that's the restricted and unrestricted ending fund balance.
right,
So when we look at 23-24, we see of that 70, let's call it 75 million,
mhm,
62.4 of it is restricted. Now, remember, we're putting a lot of things from the unrestricted side in there
Right.
year over year. But some of it isn't just available. We can't flex all of it. We're flexing what we can from year to year. And I'm gonna go back to the team tomorrow and see if we can be a little more aggressive to try to get that last 3.7 moved over. So we don't have to use any Fund 17 in 23-24. And we have more work in budget development between now and budget development for July 1, what the board's gonna have to adopt.
mm,
Because the county already told us on the unrestricted general fund side of the budget. Right there, that we needed to be operationally neutral. Right now, we're showing a deficit. Now that deficit went from 10.1 million next year to 13.6 because of the increase in special ed encroachment. So my team and I have to find a way to get that negative number in 23-24 down to 0 or to a positive number. That is the county said we had to do that, non-negotiable. So what I'm bringing you here tonight will meet the legal requirements for third interim that the county has laid out. And it kind of reframes what we need to get done between now and when the board will see at its public hearing on June 7th and hopefully adopt June 14th. It's the amount of space that we have to maneuver is very, very small at this point.
so the deficit for next year is 13.5.
On the
On
unrestricted
the
side of the budget.
unrestricted side.
When we look at the combined general fund,
That's
the deficit is 19.5 million.
Okay, and then for 24-25, it's 45 million if nothing changes.
Correct.
Okay, and then, so,
And of course, we're gonna see some of that because remember, we've accounted for some revenue that we received like in COVID dollars, like those extra $3. We've taken in that revenue. That's why this year looks so great. And the out years look bad because we do plan to spend those. And we do want to see some deficit spending on the side of the budget by virtue of the way the state and feds have funded us. But as we get closer to spending down both of our fund balances, we need an exit plan.
which is why we see it going from 94 million on ending balance to 74 to 29,
Correct.
because we're spending all of that one-time money.
Correct. And we're spending one-time money with ongoing expense.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to learn a little bit more about or maybe your hypothesis or I'm sure it's not like a clear answer that we can get right now on the issue, but one of the kind of argument points you made here is that with a significant increase in special education restricted funding, right, or restricted costs. And I'm just curious. Sorry, did you say something?
I was nodding in agreement.
Oh, I thought I heard you say, yeah, no, so I'm curious about your perspective is we have these narratives that I think are real, which is that we're short on staff in these areas. So where's most of the spending coming from? I know in special ed, that's my wheelhouse.
Yes.
You know, we have these things like, that are external to even like labor, such as legal fees that we end up paying for, settlements, et cetera. But there's also, I know that it's been a significant increase in consultants that have been brought in due to the shortages, particularly with paraprofessionals, RBTs, which are behavior techs, et cetera. We provide the supervision for these people, even though they're external folks. I guess what I'm asking is, do you have a hypothesis of where this significant increase in spending is happening? Is it just across the board? And then follow-up question, sorry, do you know if this is consistent with sort of Bay Area or California pattern?
I believe I can answer all of your questions. Maybe not with a complete like granular specificity, but I did have the good fortune of going and meeting with several of the special ed finance team today. So I feel like I'm pretty well prepared in that regard. So the bigger question about our comparability, you know, when our student identification rates are high, we're like in the 17% territory. That's very high.
That is very high.
And so I think that that is certainly gonna drive costs substantially and might explain why we're, you know, on a per student basis, probably high.
Mhm.
And so, you know, I think as we start talking about a team to work on this, hopefully the internal team more so than the external team. I think, you know, how we identify students is gonna be fundamentally important. You know, we just came out of disproportionality, so at least we're not just identifying for the reasons that got us into disproportionality, so that's great news.
Mhm.
But, you know, should we be looking at structuring differently, like what services should be done up front, for example, in preschool K and TK around OT and speech that would keep kids out of being identified with need and IEP.
Mhm.
There's investments we can make up front that are general ed investments
Mhm.
that will keep children out of sped. And, you know, once we get a child in sped, getting them out is a very lengthy process. And to be very fraught and challenging to the parents as well as the students. So, and then separately getting around to the escalation in cost. So one of the things I'm really proud that the team does is we have all the position vacancies that are spent where we believe we need to hire some because we have a legal obligation to do so. There is $0 tied to those vacant positions because the dollars were moved into the 5,000 to cover the outside services. And so what we've done is every one of those positions that has a position control number that eventually we'd like to hire for is there's $0 tied to it. But there's a note saying every time we hire someone, make sure you reduce the 5,000 commensurate. So we've tied the systems together to make sure we're not duplicate charging. Because that is where you will very often find these escalators, and then all of a sudden at your end, we have a massive drop off. And the last thing we want to do is lose the confidence of people who are putting in the hard work here in the community by just missing the mark so grandly, as we could if we double counted those costs. I think you had one other part to your question.
That was great, and I'm still a little confused in terms of, so is your feeling that it is a lot of contract, the contracted services have sort of ballooned, or the 17% is ballooned, that's a
The
balloon.
17% is ballooned.
Yeah.
But where we should be employing people in a perfect world, we are outsourcing. And so absolutely, where we can't find our own people, we have ballooned our contracts to make up the difference to meet our legal obligation. 100% correct, accurate statement.
Is this consistent? So, you know, it's an interesting question. 17% is insane, just to be clear. Typical percentage that you're looking at is nationally would be 11%. Right, but we're in a post-COVID.
In California.
Yeah, we're in a post-COVID world. We're also a low-income district, so there is a correlation with poverty and disability, and so we are not surprised to see that, right? And so, and again, post-COVID, there's a generation of kids that we should expect that this is going to happen, and so, but is this true across the state? Are we seeing an uptick in? We are seeing an uptick in
Identification rates.
identification rate, yeah.
We are. So for example, just 5 years ago, we were in the upper 12s statewide, and now we're in the 13s.
Yeah.
But, you know, to get us from 13 to 17 is a massive swing versus we had 5 years ago, 1% statewide. So we've been outlier in that regard, just like we're an outlier in how in those contracts, those 5,800s that we're looking at here, because we have to legally and morally, we have to meet the needs of these students. And we're spending to do it.
Thanks.
Anybody else have a question?
This fall.
I believe I have one. Hi, everyone. Quick question, Robert. So with the hike in the contracted work in special ed, outsourcing the work, what happens to the monies? You know how an permanent employee for healthcare and things like that, those contributions that the district makes towards healthcare and things of that nature. Since you're not paying that, what bucket does that money go into? If you're outsourcing the work?
Great question. So normally let's talk about, for example, like a paraprofessional. Let's say we have a full-time paraprofessional. And so that paraprofessional is going to be there when the student gets there. They're there the whole school day and they qualify for benefits because they're a full-time employee, right? So we budget for that paraprofessional as a full-time employee with all their statutory costs, their retirement plan, and their health and welfare. So we say the average para is going to cost, let's just use very simple round numbers. Let's say $50,000 for salary and benefits, and then their healthcare, let's say $25,000. So we say $75,000 total budgeted for that person. Now we can't find them. So we're gonna contract out. So what we do is we keep the position open
Mm-hmm,
and we take the whole $75,000 for the salary and the benefits. And
mm-hmm.
we moved into the 5,000 to cover, because when we contract out, we're paying the salary and benefits to this third-party company who's paying them. And on average, it's costing more than what it would cost us to employ that person. So we may pay $85,000 to that outside company for what we would hope we could do for 75,000 locally.
So you're paying a roughly higher percentage per person with
I
the,
can't say on every single circumstance, but on average, yes.
okay, and I don't know if this is too much to ask. Can I just see, I would like to just see one example, how much an agency charges the district for an employee, for a paraprofessional? Just one, is there a way that we can see that? Because I'm thinking, why would we have to pay for the healthcare and benefits for the agency? That's something that they would potentially offer, I would
But
think, but maybe I'm
that's-
not understanding.
Well, they're gonna pass that cost on to us, right? So if they're giving us somebody who's full-time and their benefits eligible, and it costs them, let's say they could probably even pay less because they don't pay the PERS, right? So let's say that their cost of that employee is probably only 65,000, but they're charging us 95,000. It's kind of that thing, so they have the cost of the employee plus their profit on top. They don't do it for free.
Yeah, I know that.
But I'd be happy to pull a contract and see what an average billing, or pull an invoice so we can show what an average billing looks like. I'm happy to do that at the chair's direction.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, Dr. McIntyre, I have a question. So when you came in here, we needed to find 19 million, right? When you sat down and you start talking, now we need to find 19 plus 10,
Yes,
so
ma'am.
29 million again?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you stop coming in here? So it went up 10 because for the next 3 years, we have 3 million from special ed that we're adding. Is that right?
It's very rare that special ed costs go down. In fact, if I were to just recognize the increase this year and pretend like it was gonna happen for the next 2 years, I promise our fiscal advisor and the county would kick our budget back immediately. It wouldn't pass the sniff test, as they say.
Right.
There's a couple places where, if you're familiar with school financials, you look, and that's one of them. If contributions is going down, you better have like an essay on how you're making that happen, because the whole world would love to know how to make that happen.
So here's my second question. If student enrollment is going down, and we know that we're projected to keep going down over the next 3 years, right? What does that do to salaries? How do salaries go down and salaries stay the same? If enrollment goes down?
So typically, what we would do is we try to match the number of adults in the system to the number of students. So as the number of students goes down, the number of adults also needs to go down.
That's what you mean about right sizing. When you use the
Correct.
term right sizing, that's what you're
Yes.
talking about.
And I don't mean to sound heartless or cold. Ideally, that happens through natural attrition, people choosing to retire or do other things. That's the perfect world. And where we see a need, then we can talk about things like early tell incentives, and other districts who are have kind of a better financial outlook might offer, like, for example, an early retirement incentive. We're a couple years past that, just from a financial perspective, but for example, for us, we know that we need a certain number of people to retire for next year, or for the following year. So where we see that fiscal solvency plan for year 3, we know we have to take action next year for year 3. And so there's a real argument or a conversation to be had, for example, that might increase the humane nature of the engagement, where we say, it's definitely in the district's interest to know who's going to choose to retire early, to have that knowledge early. And maybe we offer a stipend to anybody willing to tell us, because every one of those early tells we get is one less potential pink slip we have to offer. And in fact, UTR was very gracious in negotiating what that would look like. So the pathway is clear in order to make that happen, at least on the certificated side. So we can try to minimize those, you know, kind of industry atrocities like the pink slips. The fewer of those we can ever do, the better.
But the inverse is true too. If enrollment goes up, then we need the
Then we're-
more staffing that.
Then we're right staffed.
Then we're right, so the goal is, because we're projected for enrollment to go down, the goal is to help enrollment come up. To make sure that the right sizing is as small as possible. And then to work with our partners to make sure that what else can we do? What else can we do within our scope to find out the attrition as quick as possible? Is that what you said?
Correct, and so some of the ways to address the how is become known for certain, become known and brand around certain programs. So if you're known for having a high quality dual language program, that's like what you're known for. You're known for having magnet programs or IB programs,
Community school.
community schools. Then, you know, ideally, then we'd be bringing in our neighbors' kids, the Allenville kids, for people who work in the community. If we build it, they could come, but we need to build a better widget. To give people the reason to come here and not go to a neighboring district where they feel they have a better widget.
Okay, and then what you showed us, pulling from Fund 17, that's Plan A.
So it's currently Plan B. So it's Plan A in meeting the third interim reporting requirements as laid out by the county.
Right.
But the county said, separate from that, for your adopted budget, you also have to do these other things. So we're doing it in 2 steps. Mainly because of where we are with staffing, our fiscal director's out. And you know, it's like trying to play the World Series without your pitcher. So, you know, we're definitely scrambling and everybody's working hard to pick up the slack, but she's back in a couple weeks and so we'll be able to pull that last bit of work together. And in that last bit of work, we're gonna be making some more trade-offs and have a very granular analysis of all the restricted funding sources and the exact positions we're putting in, because part of what the county wants to see in the adopted budget is not only the unrestricted side of the budget for 23-24 is operationally neutral or positive. You don't have a negative, we have a positive or zero. But they want to know every single position that's ongoing, that we've moved from the unrestricted side of the budget into a restricted funding source. Because that is essentially your RIF list, and the county wants the RIF list as part of the adopted budget. Because they want to be able to advise, they want the fiscal advisor to be able to be an objective voice in your ear, not just me. So they want, you know, the superintendent of Mackey, Jametta Cleveland, the new county CDO, to be able to kind of help support and reinforce, you know, kind of the commitments that have been made around the fiscal solvency plan. Because you know, it's a heavy lift even for this board to do it by itself and for the staff. We've got a lot of PR and conversations to have to get there.
So they want a RIF list, when, by when?
They want it as part of the adopted budget, so the list of
That's
all the
July?
positions, correct.
July, so in
to-
July, June. So June, they're gonna want to see a list where you're gonna let 25 teachers go and 300 this go, and is that what they're looking for? What exactly are they looking for? Because the RIF list to me is just what I said, 25 teachers, 300. So, this position, 400 of this, is that what they're looking for, or what are they looking for?
That is what they're looking for, but that doesn't mean within the list or within the categories, the board doesn't have leeway to make adjustments. But in total, they are looking like, here's the ongoing staff we're charging the one-time funding, it's gonna exhaust eventually. So we'll list those out, you know, it'd be a certain number of teaching positions, certain number of this position, certain number of that.
That we're covering now with one-time funds.
Correct. We'll detail that out. And, you know, if extra money comes in from the state, then that'll make some adjustments to that list. If we make some other cuts, that'll make more adjustments to the list. With the goal of eventually working our way up to 0. But for now, we have to generate it. We have to show, we have to provide detail and specificity to the fiscal solvency plan. That is what the newest county letter has told us to do.
Okay, any other questions?
So. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say is that we have a $29 million deficit by year 3. That we are, on the first year, next year, we are paying down by using as their one-time funds. And by moving some positions to restricted funds, so that we
The
can.
emergency learning block grant, the RX music grant. So not Prop 28, but the other one, the one-time funding source. So it's, and so part of what we're working on right now that's not in this is the level of detail of each number of, like, which positions are in which funding source. Because we do need, you know, my goal is to maximize what we're putting in those funding sources to give you as much stretch time as possible.
Now, in the third year, because that money is going away, we're having to utilize Fund 17
If you don't make the cuts.
if we don't make the cuts, which is literally the last funding that we have, that we could potentially use.
Yes, and remember, the adopted budget is gonna have 25, 26 on it.
Which,
So when we think about it, we were like 13 million this year, 40 million next year, 65 million third year.
so how do you show a positive budget on the 25, 26? In, on the numbers?
The county isn't as worried about 25, 26.
They're allowing us-
They're gonna adopt a qualified budget. We don't self-certify the adopted budget, but you're gonna be adopting a qualified budget for sure. But then what they wanna see is you're operationally neutral next year. And that you've got enough cash to get through 18 months. That's the difference between qualified and negative. So that's their objective, is to keep you in front of that as long as possible.
So they're allowing us for the 25, 26 to be deficit, but,
That they know that's.
okay,
The goal is that we make enough changes now for 23, 24, and 24, 25 that we're using the money from Fund 17, we're pushing it out into 25, 26. That's what they'd like to see us do.
But
But
they
if
would
nothing-
also like to see a curriculum.
well,
Yes,
because if nothing changes, we can't make do on the third year out.
So it's
So-
24, 25.
currently 24, 25.
Currently.
I mean, we
24,
can't, we
25.
can't open doors if we technically don't make cuts or utilize Fund
And
17.
23, 24.
Right.
Or 24, 25.
Right. We just can't, we can't even pay payroll.
So the goal is to either make cuts or use Fund 17.
No, you need to make
Yeah.
cuts.
You have to make cuts.
Yeah.
We're using Fund
We're
17.
already using Fund 17.
In this, yeah.
If nothing changes, we're using Fund 17. Not that anything should change. Essentially.
Is there just I'm just curious if this is a naive question, but, you know, looking at the budgets from the adopted budgets to the first interims to the actuals, you know, over years, you see like a huge amount of variation in what is projected versus what is real. Is this just the nature of the beast that we live with a certain level of uncertainty and we project out in these 3 years, and so we're kind of, you know, things come, I mean, I saw in revenues, like it went up from, I don't know if it's back up there, but.
Well, between the adopted budget and first interim,
Yeah.
because the COLA changed massively.
Yeah, so is there like this, I guess what I'm asking is like, do we have to live with a certain level of uncertainty when we're doing this work, that it's always gonna look somewhat awful within the conditions where across the state, we're seeing declines in population, we're seeing declines in ADA, right? I used to, my first job in the district was like a scout, and I was in charge of attendance, which is why I know the HOA system, and I remember our goal was 95%, so I'm pretty blown away by a 90% as well. And so the conditions that we're in terms of like societal conditions post-COVID, is this just something that we have to live with, this level of uncertainty when we're sort of doing these projections on these 3 years, or is that naive, I guess?
No, you bring up a great point. Probably in my decade of doing this, probably the biggest source of consternation for governance teams is you're constantly telling me something's changing,
Mhm.
constantly. And because we can't make another widget.
Mhm.
The only thing we have some control over is how the frequency with which students are in their seats.
Yeah.
So attendance initiatives can help us a lot. If we get students in their seats 5% more a year,
Right.
a lot of this problem solves itself. But we would be doing something that very few in the state are being successful at right now. So it's like a low probability to rely on that as the only solution. But you're right, because we adopt budget based on what we're told in May
Mhm.
of this year for next year. And then the governor comes back in January and says, well, here's what's happening with state revenue and our plans, and here's all the changes. And so in January, we make some changes, and then we come back in May and make more changes. And some of those changes are for the same damn year, not just next year.
Mhm.
And so we're asking the governance team, lock in all your labor costs today,
Right.
go out to bid and get some really good deals on all your contracts today.
Mhm.
So you're gonna do maybe the multi-year deals trying to get cheaper for this year. And then your revenue changes and because it's so tied to capital gains, because remember, we get a big chunk of our money from the state, not all of it comes from local property tax. And so from when we look at the state revenues, 2/3 of the Prop 98 money we get from the state revenues is personal income tax. Half of that is capital gains, almost, just shy. Capital gains is the most volatile income source we have. So we tied the fate of public education to a super volatile revenue stream. This is why we're constantly doing this as an industry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, this is an industry. So you hit on a very good point that we are managing against a constant barrage of unknowns and what ifs. But we do have to hold things constant, which is why no matter who's sitting in this chair, it is incumbent upon the governance team and the stakeholders to know what the assumptions it's being built off of. And that's why I've always welcomed any of the layer groups to challenge the assumptions we're using. If there's a better model, I am absolutely open to making adjustments to our model, as long as it passes the set that we get through the county. I have actually gone against the county on the COLA number. And when I was in Los Angeles, and they said, we'll try it this once, and lucky I was closer than they were. Because there were some very obvious things happening in the economy that the county wasn't, that the state wasn't acknowledging, the Department of Finance wasn't acknowledging at the time. So we recognized higher revenue than the county wanted us to. But we were right. We're not in that state right.
There's like an example this year, right? So the COLA projected for the next upcoming year has been announced at 5.18, I believe, something along those lines. But last year was projected to be lower, and then in January it was projected to be 5.8, and now the official numbers are 5.1. So it's technically higher than it was projected last year, but it's lower than it was projected in January.
Correct. So we made adjustments on the multi-year 3 times in that 1-year period as a result of the Department of Finance saying, use this number. Okay, stop, not now, use this other number now. So you're right, we're shooting a bit of a moving target that we don't control. And that is really hard for governing boards and finance teams to set. So many things are locked in and unchangeable once we start.
So here's my question, sorry to interrupt, here's my question, who keeps moving the goal line, right? Because it seems like it keeps moving, right? We had a number, and I think John just alluded to this a little bit, it moves, right? It goes up and down, it moves. How are we going to make a list off a moving target, right? So how do we make a human list, so these are people,
Absolutely.
off of a target that keeps moving back and forth, up and down, or month to month, kind of interim to interim to interim. And I ask that question because that's the conversation at some point we need to have as one of the conversations that I increasingly want to have is, what do we look as lean as possible? Are we as lean as we can possibly be to continue to function, right? Like, are we there yet? And if we're not there yet, what does it look like when we're there, right? What does it look like when we're as lean as we possibly be to function? Does it move that goal, that number down, right? The major number that we have, does it move it down?
Yes.
The second, and I like that question first, and that question is not, that's not my RIF list, right? Like, that question is, what do we look like lean in central office? What do we look like lean all over the district, but starting centrally? What do we look like lean? Then what does it look like when we've leaned ourselves, we cut as thin as we can, and this is what it looks like. And this is the number of people. This is a people now. Now we're people in central office, and then we're people here, because people are our biggest expenditure, right? So it looks like this centrally, it looks like this on our greater scale that ends up touching the kids, right? When do we get to those numbers to have that conversation if the goal line keeps moving, right? So now we're at 29, and then it may move again, and the pleasure of the county, I understand, because they have to sign off on whatever. But we can give them whatever list we want, right? As long as it's attached to cuts. Is that correct? Okay. When do we start having a conversation about who we want or not want, who is going to be on that list? Like, nobody wants this, right?
Absolutely.
But who is on that list when do we start having that conversation? If it's coming up in June, July? Was that a clear question?
It is, but my answer may provide clarity or it may irritate. And I would argue rather than trying to achieve what we might call the bare bones baseline, we, as an organization, since we're goal oriented towards students, what it might be better to do is take the list of services that we want to provide to meet the goals for outcomes for students and rank them. So we say this service needs all these people, these costs, it costs X, let's say $5 million. So our most high effect size service for students is our number one. And then we would have 2, 3, 4, 5, and we just go down the list and we run out of money, we stop. And everything that's not the people and expenses in those high effect returns, good for students, you know, well adjusted, fed, all that, then that falls off. That is because then you're working toward outcomes for the students rather than building a skeleton only on a system that may not be meeting needs.
So what you're saying is, we have a conversation that says, all right, everybody, what do kids have to have? And then we start with that. Kids, for example, kids have to have teachers. So we start there, gotta keep teaching.
Right.
Kids have to have,
Well, part of that conversation, we have to say, what does the staffing ratio for teachers look like? Some of that we worked on contractually with the teachers. But even within that contract, we may decide, you know, the top of their contract is not what we consider to be in the best interest of our students. We probably want a lower number. So where do we set that? And if that's our core number one most effective delivery, you know, that first primary instruction, we need to decide what that level is, because I promise you, we have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of teachers above the ratios that are in our staffing matrix right now.
so
And
what
that's not
you're
a bad
saying
thing.
is when we have the conversation about student centered,
Yes.
what's the first thing students have to have? Teachers. And then you say, then you have to have a conversation about what that looks like, right? And so, but is that a negotiation question, or is that a question that this committee has, or is that a question that the board has? Who answers that question? Or is it everybody answers that question? Like, who answers the
At
question?
the end of the day, the governing team with the superintendent, typically kind of, they lay out the vision and goals, and then you align everything, kind of this conversation behind that. And so part of what we've kind of missed, we're meandering a bit because we're missing our North Star. So it's very difficult to align effectively behind what we're doing is meeting obligations or meeting compliance, rather than we're ticking the compliance box on our way to meeting this goal. And so we're kind of coming backwards at it. And I think if we really, it would change the conversation we have around why and the how of staffing. I know my team worked very hard to try to convince, for example, site leaders, you know, here's the staffing matrix, so here's what it says you need, and when we went to them with these numbers, you would have thought we were asking some very, very bad things, you know, committing crimes. It was a very difficult change for site leaders to imagine, to envision, to do with less. And we've reinforced that behavior year over year. Now, they're not bad people. They're there for kids too, just like the teachers, just like the administrators. And so but I think once the goal is clear and we understand what the rank priorities of our activities are, high quality teachers, great. How do we support them? How do we lift them up? How do we develop them? How do we give them PD? How do we give them a break? How do we give them their prep period? You know, all these things suddenly start building out a model, and whatever else, once we run out of money, we just stop.
Okay. Mr. John?
Yeah, along this conversation, there, you know, in a lot of the research suggests that when you have a tier 3 problem, you often have a tier 1 problem. What does that mean? I know that's very jargony, but special education is what we consider tier 3. Tier 1 is every student receives this. Tier 2 is there's a certain set of kids, maybe they're struggling with reading, they get additional supports. And then there's tier 3, which is the highest need kids. They're the kids that get really intensive supports. A lot of the research suggests that a number like 17% of kids being identified for SPED, you actually have a general education problem. Kind of a base sort of issue. So when you're talking about North Star issues, right? That is very compliance focused. It's very like, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you're gonna get sued. If you do anything wrong, it makes you liable for settlements, right? When really what's at core is teaching kids. And so often what we sort of emphasize is, go back to the basics, like teaching basketball, like passing, you know? And so going back to the basics is often a better way, CSACE, right? This is the whole idea behind the CSACE model. A better way to spend your money is at core base sort of things, because then that'll reduce the amount of kids sort of moving up the ladder, right? So when we're thinking about where can we reduce things, we're spending a ton of money in these special education areas. We should, and it's moral and it's right, and I believe in it. And I wonder how many of those kids we could actually do a lower level intervention, maybe at a core base. So this is an example, behavior. You're having a lot of fights at lunch. Yeah, you can pull that kid and give them counseling, and you can talk to them and do a behavior plan. You can also do a school-wide assembly where you talk about what are expected behaviors. And that's a very low cost, low thing, right? But that's very powerful. And so when we have these conversations, I'm just thinking about when he said, what's our North Star, right? Sometimes it's a more basic thing than the higher level. And I'm just hearing we're really high on these intensive needs sort of cases. It's just a question that comes up into my head is our North Star returning to this baseline? For me personally, I know this is not the point of this conversation. For me personally in this district, and in most districts, there's a divide between SPED. It's like, that's what you do, and that's what we do, right? And it's actually it's actually an integrated system, right? Sorry, I'm getting emotional, so we're good. But anyways, so when you have that sort of mindset, the research suggests you actually save money in the long run in terms of intensive need. And another example is, when there's like a crisis at school, sometimes like teachers are like, John, you need to talk to this kid, they're crying. And I'm like, don't you think it's appropriate for them to cry? Something intense just happened. That's actually a very normal behavior. So they could have them see the school psychologist, and then they learn, oh, whenever I cry, I need to see someone, right? That's teaching them a bad thing. They didn't need that. They probably just needed a hug from their teacher, a side hug, right? We don't hug. And so sometimes you get a really big bang for your buck with these sort of lower level base sort of system-wide things, so.
I think what we're having is really good conversation. I think what we're having is really transparent conversation, because at some point we're going to have to, and the county's telling us, right? But I really do like the idea of centering and then talking, right?
Yes.
Like centering the kids and then having a conversation about what do they have to have? What does this district say we are going to provide?
Mhm,
And starting with that, and then attaching the money with that.
mhm.
And then if we run out of money on the third thing, if we run out of money on the 17th thing, then at least we're having a conversation, and we can look the community and look the kids in the face and say, we did the best of what we have. Like, this is what we have, and we did it with you in mind. And I think, John, to your point, every general education teacher needs to know that they are a special education teacher. And every special ed student needs to know that they're a general ed student. So we do have to blend these worlds, because one, not only is it just the way that every student is an independent learner. We know that. If we continue to just hit the middle of the bell curve, we're going to continue to lose a lot of students on either end. But that's a conversation that all of our unions have to be on board with, all of our district staff have to be on board with. We have to have a full to the table conversation about what we can do. And that means that we unfortunately are going, and John, this is the same emotion that you have, we're gonna lose people. And that's hard to take, because it's so hard, and this conversation absolutely sucks. We're taking a break. So we are gonna take a break because, and we need one. So part of our norms is take a break when you need it.
Yeah.
So we will be back in 10 minutes. That actually 12 minutes, because you know what's up. Y'all been here this like 6 meetings. It's gonna be 12 minutes. We'll be back at 6, what is that, 12:20? Thank you. Ms. Kitchen, you're always the most dependable person. We will be back at 6:20. Thank you, everyone. Dr. Hurst, if you can put that little thing up there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, everybody get you something to eat and stretch your legs, because that was that was absolutely awesome. And Dr. McIntyre, I didn't mean don't come back. That was just.
What time did we say we're gonna return?
6:20. I want you to come back and I think you tell me, but.
You get the harder. That was 70% last week, we talked about trips.
back in a few minutes, so she has to start. Okay, so we just heard from Dr. McIntyre. Thank you, Dr. McIntyre. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, it's my pneumonia. I am good now. No one ran out of the room, but I still have that cough. Anyway, so we just went through the budget. If anyone has further questions though, please send them to Dr. McIntyre. I'm looking at all of our labor partners. So now we're going to move to our contract review. We, at the last meeting, we're finishing or continuing our Ed Services contract. So if everyone can pull up their Ed Services packet, we're gonna continue with the last third that we have left. Actually, I'm going to wait for Clerk Smith Foltz and Mr. Saval to come back. I do see Ms. Huffman on the Zoom. Hi, good evening. I also see Mr. Director Chilcott and Director Smith. Good evening. And I think that's it from your team, right, Ms. Huffman?
That's all I brought this evening, based on what was, what needed to still be reviewed. Yes.
Well, thank you. That is more than enough. I'm just kidding. That's great. All right, so are you okay if we get started?
Absolutely.
Okay, so we were on page,
62.
thank you. I was gonna look at right at you, Ms. Kitchen. So everybody, please go to page 52.
Jim.
We were on STEM. And Dr. Hurst gonna put up on the screen.
And we're on. And Ms. Kitchen, will you keep,
Ingenuity.
will you keep up with the dollar amount that we did?
We were on ingenuity. Goodness, where is it?
So this one right here, line 21.
No, we're on Edgenuity. Go down a little more.
Oh, good. Okay. So just a reminder, Ingenuity or Imagine Learning, we had a discussion about this last time. This is our credit recovery. If you remember, we had two contracts on this. One, which was the credit recovery option during the school year.
What's this one?
Another one for the
Yeah.
summer school
This one.
option, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Chilcott. And this one specifically is for the services for this summer, is that correct? No,
Okay, so there are two distinct Edgenuity contracts. One is for credit recovery, and that one is a license for all of our high school students, and it actually covers the entire school year, including summer. So that's the one block, which if I'm looking at it right here, is I believe the 21 and 22 lines that are being shared by Dr. Hurst. And then below that, there's one that has IS written on it, and that's the first instruction that we went into contract with them this year when it became clear that we were not going to be able to fill a handful of teaching positions. And so we needed another form of first instruction. And so that was not our first choice on how to do that. We'd much rather have the teachers in the classroom, but those are the two distinct contracts.
and the recommendations obviously to continue them both because we might still need teachers. We could always come back and decrease it, right, if we don't need the services?
That would be my proposal, yes. The credit recovery, I think is quite robust and growing. So I would definitely hope that we keep that because there's a number of students that are getting their credits through that program. And again, it's increasing year over year. And the IS, just like you stated, we can go into contract to be ready to pivot to that as needed without spending that money if we do find the teachers, which is truly my hope.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Director Chilcott. And just quick housekeeping, Ms. Moses will be sitting with us as representing WCAA for the rest of the meeting because Mr. De Leon is at an SSC meeting. So thank you, Ms. Moses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so everybody, I think that, oh, you had a question, please.
So, Gabe, the one that is currently listed at 170 is actually 435 because there was an increase to it. Do you anticipate that same cost next year?
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, because the way that we structured the contract for this school year was for half the year in the hope that we'd be able to fill those teaching positions. So yeah, if we enter into it, I don't know that we would, I mean, I'd probably structure the contract in the same way, semester by semester, with the hope that we would fill those positions if we come to that point. But yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so just to clarify, again, Dr. Chilcott, so we're looking at the contract for 170. We're also looking at the one in page 62 for 250. Correct?
Yeah, the 250 is the credit recovery and the 170 was our initial thinking when we first entered into the contract. But as was just stated, that more than doubled because we added other sites that were missing teachers as well as extended into the second semester.
So what you're proposing for next year is still the 170, or are you actually updating it to the 435?
I think we need to at least consider the 435 because it is a year long and I don't know quite how to budget that. Yes, I would go in basically planning on 170 in the fall and then something along the lines of 170 in the spring. So maybe not the 400 that it was this year, but I would want to make sure that we were ready to pivot to using Edgenuity as first instruction if in an emergency we need to this fall as well.
Okay, Choka, we're supposed to reduce, not add.
I know, I'm sorry. Let's go in
okay.
expecting to have teachers in all those classrooms and then that contract can disappear and we can recoup those funds.
That sounds great. Okay, everybody, any additional questions before we vote?
So it's a total of 685
So,
$1,000?
He's anticipating 340 on that one instead of 435.
so 340 for next year, that's it for one. So then if you add the contract from the page 62, that's an additional 250. So it's 340 plus 250, which is,
Right.
thank you. I heard three numbers, but yeah.
Yeah.
something like that. Very nice, thank you.
I just want to clarify, I'm making sure, because I'm looking at the paper and I'm looking at the computer. We're speaking to, I just want to make sure where we left off, the, where am I at? The credit repair, right? We're on page 62 or 63, because the computer,
Yeah, we're looking at two contracts. We're looking at the one on page 62.
okay,
It's the one that says Ingenuity and it's for 250,000.
okay,
And then if you turn
Got
the page to page 63,
And then-
we're looking at the one that says,
213, okay.
yeah, 170, no, 170, right below.
170 right here, okay, and this went up. I
that.
know that which one increased?
That one, the 170 is being increased to 340.
Okay, thank
Correct.
you. All right, I'm just putting the.
Next year.
For
This
next
year, right now,
for
it's
next year.
430.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, now who's doing that? Who's doing the computer?
It's Dr. Hurst.
Slow down, Dr. Hurst.
Gotcha. Gotcha, Shanae.
Okay, everybody, let's go ahead and vote. Just a reminder, we vote up, down, or sideways. Up is that we are keeping it. Down is let's take it off. Sideways is I can live with it. That could be good or bad, but you can live with it. So that counts as like an abstention.
Are you keeping track
okay.
of sheets and all that? Okay.
So, and we are doing both. We're doing the 250 and the 340 or 170 on the page.
Can you remind those pages, please?
Yeah, 62 and 63.
Thanks.
Okay, ready? So I see both. Are you doing the pinky or are you doing the? Or are you doing?
I broke my finger. My pinky doesn't bend anymore. 'cause
Oh, no, okay.
So I'm doing up.
Sorry, okay. That sounds good. Okay, see everybody ready? Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. So we're keeping both of the. But I don't know who's keeping record today. Oh, thank you.
Veronica.
So we're keeping both. Thank you. Now, in between both of those, we also have the continuation of Renaissance Learning, which is a total of 213,000. Anyone have questions on this one?
And just as a point of clarity, that will be either Renaissance or iReady, which is another line item on there, for under $300,000, but somewhere in that range. I don't think it changes the structure of the vote that you're doing, but I just want to be really clear that it's one of those two assessment platforms.
We had a comment that it may change someone's vote. Okay, but either one, and then people can advocate for their favorite outside of this meeting. That's what I'm.
Correct.
That sounds good. Okay, anyone have any questions?
I have a question about the consulting services. Are those required to go along with the contract? Or are they optional?
Yes, basically there's a $25,000, I don't know what the housing fee is actually called, but that's what that is. So yes, each of the contracts has that $25,000 on it for consulting services.
Yeah, and that's just a split in the funding. It's just the way we have to do it. The first 25,000 goes to 5860, the rest goes to 5100. It's no difference in services.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Good. Any more questions? Jenny, do you have a question? No, okay. Okay, everybody, let's vote. Jenny, Ken? Okay, that is no problem. Ken? You're muted, okay. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. So we're keeping it. Thank you. Okay, we're moving now to, so on page 63, we are now moving to the reading writing project network. This is for 138,000. Now there are 3 no's and 1 yes. So really what staff is asking us is to continue the 45,000. Everything else they're proposing to cut. And the 45,000, Dr. Choka, can you remind us what that would pay for?
I can speak to that.
Thank you.
Hi,
Thank
how are you? Yes, so that would be continuing professional development for especially new teachers in our adopted curriculum.
Got it. Is that?
I have a note from last time that 45,000 would be paid from the educator effectiveness grant.
Yeah,
Is that still the plan?
That is the goal, yes.
okay, yeah, move to a different fund. That's what I have.
Oh, okay,
So that would actually be a reduction in
yeah,
our funding.
We get it back?
45,000. All right, Director Henry, you jumped in. You're close for a donut. Definitely don't share that with Dr. Shoka. I'm just kidding. Okay, wonderful. Let's move to a vote.
Because it's already.
Because it's being cut.
Yeah.
Okay, keeping it. Because of the source. Yeah, thank you. Okay, we're moving on to News to You, which is a license renewal for 69,000. Anyone have questions on this one?
What is it?
This is, I believe, IEP student, yeah. This is for IEP students, but probably.
Yeah, Dr. Chilcott or Dr. Henry, sorry, Dr. Chilcott or Ms. Henry, either one of you want to very quickly explain that?
Sure. It's a bundle and I don't have the papers in front of me, so I can only see what's on the screen. So it's not just that one. There's 4 in there that are adaptive curriculum, and it is for IEP students. And so it's not this specific curriculum. It's what is the supports that are required by the IEP. And then it is deemed by the case manager that this is the appropriate curriculum. And so those 4 items, the News to You, and I'm blanking on what the other 3 are, but they're on they're in the same vicinity, are all for adaptive curriculum. And there's really not much option to change that because we have to support students to access the core curriculum as per their IEP.
Okay, so I had noted from the last time that News to You was one, the iReady license purchase was 2, and the curriculum associates at the bottom is 3. But I have a note that says all 4, and I couldn't figure out what the 4th one was.
I don't think those were the 4. Give me a second. I'll look at the sheet and I'll get back to you.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, you're fine. While he's doing that, any other questions? Now I'm gonna call everybody doctor. Dr. DeLeon, do you have a question?
So this is a requirement to fulfill the needs in IEP process for a student.
That's correct.
Can anybody remember that notation that's beside it that says cutting? Why is that notation on the sheet?
I can speak to that, Jose. Sonia and I, at the last meeting, addressed that because the special education budget also pays for News to You, but the LCAP, as a part of the LCAP plan, they supplement some of the special education services. So at the time, we didn't understand that this was a supplement to what SPED is doing as well. We thought it was separate. But it is a program that's used in our ESN classes.
Mhm.
And every student has access to it through Clever at all times. So it is something that's being used. Now, when we talk about how much is coming out of SPED's restricted budgets and what's coming out of LCAP, I can't speak to that, but that was the confusion, that we have a contract in our SPED budget with News to You as well. Does that make sense, Gabe?
Yeah, no, and so it's line 34 News to You, line 41 Learning A to Z, line 50 Moby Max, and line 58 I Know It are all accessing the core curriculum is a general ed function, and even students with IEPs, we still need to out of the general education funding programs fund the ability to be able to access grade level core curriculum. And so that's what these 4 are for. And again, it's not the platform specific, it's what is written in the IEP, and it's these areas of need for those particular students, and the case managers or the person that runs this program deem these the 4 that are chosen. But yeah, Ms. Moses, that was exactly right.
Could you name the 4 again, please?
Yep. Line 34 News to You, line 41 Learning A to Z, line 50 Moby Max, and line 58 I Know It.
Thank you.
And only ESN classes are using these 4 lines of software? Only the ESN or all SPED?
I can't remember what classifications are using it specifically, so I wouldn't want to give you false information on that. I could look it up, but I don't know.
Is there,
Moby Max and Learning A to Z is used in the learning centers. News to You and Unique are used in the ESN and possibly MMSN classes, depending upon the needs of the students.
Well, it sounds like this program that we have to keep, right? So I think it's pretty straightforward on this one, since the IEPs require these programs. Okay, so let's just do a vote, everybody.
well, is there a way to get the software cheaper first? I mean, I'm just asking, maybe.
I'm sorry, Shanae, can you repeat that?
Is there a cheaper software, or is this it? Can this be purchased for cheaper?
Yeah, that would be a selfless question.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to find the cheapest options that will best support the students. But to the best of my understanding, I wasn't the one that decided the actual programs themselves, was that these were the due diligence was done around finding the cheapest versions and trying to find deals with them, and these were those. But I could also look into that and track that down as well. But my understanding is that yes, this is about as cheap as it gets.
Okay.
Okay, well, Dr. Chocolate, if you could find that out for us, that'd be great. But let's still vote. And then that way we can move forward. Okay, ready, let's go ahead and vote. Okay, sounds good. We're keeping it. So now let's move to, this is, I think, this is for iReady. Now the recommendation was for no, for 55,000.
Right, so that one's already designated as no.
Great. So let's move to the next one. This is also for iReady or for AR. This is the other one that Dr. Choco was talking about. For curriculum associates, this one is for $45,000. Is this also for just for professional development, Dr. Choco?
So the curriculum associates would be professional development for iReady. So there would be professional development associated with either iReady or Renaissance. But as the Renaissance one has already gone through as a yes, we could call these no's. But just to be clear, it's either iReady or Renaissance that we're putting that money towards, but these could be cut.
So if we, I just hear you say, if we pick AR, this could be cut, but if we pick iReady, then we would need the PD, so.
Oh, I see. No, sorry. No, we can cut it, and either one's going to have a professional development cost associated with it, but that would probably come out of educator effectiveness. Director Henry and I were already talking about that. So the process that we're in right now, the yes that we already did for Renaissance covers either iReady or Renaissance, whichever direction we go. And all of these line items that are under iReady can be cut.
Oh, great, all right.
Do I get my donut now?
You get a donut.
You are catching up, little by little, 45,000.
45?
Yeah. Everybody okay with cutting this one then?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, let's go,
We go down.
we're okay with cutting.
Don't say okay.
Okay, that's okay, I'm sorry, I'm totally making.
I
this
just-
vote.
I just want to, I want to add something real quick as Gabe is talking about the cutting of the PD for Renaissance, or iReady. It is going into educator effectiveness. Educator effectiveness has, I believe we're on year 2 of a 5-year, the educator effectiveness grant. So just know that at some point that will have to roll back into some other funding source because educator effectiveness is a grant. So it's 3 years out, but just keeping that in mind that, it's going to have to roll back into something if there's no other grant for it to go into.
Makes sense, okay. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move forward. We are now on learning A through Z for $27,000. Any questions on this one? Everybody know learning A through Z? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, no, we already voted on that.
Oh, that's the one we voted. Oh, thank you. Yes, that's right. Never mind, ignore me. Then the other two are, the next 3 are no's, so we're doing pretty good. Next one is Center for Collaborative Classroom for 12,000. I don't remember what this one's at all.
Okay, so Dave, that was SIPS training. Are you gonna require SIPS training again?
Yeah, I think Director Henry would be better to answer that. Yeah.
Yes, I'm looking back at the notes here, but yes, I was looking at also shifting that into educator effectiveness to cover the cost of professional development.
Roll that. Yes, 12,300.
Great.
Perfect.
Teachers like SIPs, Ms. Henry.
What's that?
I think teachers are really liking the SIPs program.
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, moving back, we already cut. No, I'm sorry, we already approved. I apologize. So let's go down to Project Lead the Way. This is for $5,400, so we're getting to really small numbers. But, any questions on this one?
These are grant funded, I believe.
Yes, they are all grant funded. Any questions? Okay, let's vote. We're okay on keeping it?
If it's grant funded, yes.
Yes.
Because if it's grant funded, it can't be utilized for anything else, right?
Right.
Okay, so it's not, it's really,
Actually, do we want to vote for both of the project lead away at the same time?
Oh, that's a good idea. Everybody okay with both of them? They're both grant funded. Okay. Let's move to I Know It. Oh, no, we already put that one as well. Okay, we're done with this section.
Yeah.
So let's move to page 66.
So that's already known.
That's already a no. So let's move to page 67. Okay, this is library services, Dr. Hurd. Oh, you're already there. Perfect. Okay, the first one is designated ELD adoption for 1.2 million. Any questions on this one?
For some reason, I don't have any notes. I'm wondering, did we even talk about them or did we just bypass them because they were all lottery funded?
Yeah, I mean, both of those things, we talked about it and I basically said, yes, these are lottery funded and therefore they're not really touchable. I mean, these have to go towards instructional materials. And they won't necessarily be these. In fact, they won't be these because we go through rotation of what we're adopting. But the roughly $1.6 million we get a year from lottery funds is how we fund our instructional materials.
Right, so, yeah, they're gonna need the money regardless of what it's for,
Right.
so, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess.
Skip those.
70 then. Let's move to page 70, everyone. We're now on materials and supply,
Preschool.
preschool. This is for the first one, the first two staff recommend us to bring back, so we move to the third one, which is an order for supplies, 19,000 for preschool. Are we continuing these orders for next year?
Liz, do you want to chime in here around preschool? So I'm not, preschool funds, we cannot access in terms of anything related to the cuts. It's a separate funding source, so we can't actually use any of the preschool dollars. So I'm not sure why we have preschool on this spreadsheet. Preschool state funded, it cannot be used for anything related to the deficit or any covering of those costs.
Okay.
That's true.
All right, well then let's move forward to page 671. I mean, I think that this is.
Oisa.
Okay. The first 4 items, staff is not bringing back. So the first item is materials and supplies for $2,000. I mean, this is a tiny contract, you know.
Yeah, just to be fair, that they had allocated 8,000 for Amazon and they cut it by 6, so they're only keeping 2.
Okay, why don't we vote?
On the 2,000.
$2,000.
Oh my gosh.
Hopefully it's fine, maybe. Mr. Ryan? There we go. Perfect. Okay, we're keeping it.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're moving to another order for 2,000. This is for materials for events. Okay, let's vote. Oh,
Yeah.
Mr. De Leon, Mr. Ryan, okay, it's Mr. Ryan.
Yeah.
Perfect, okay, we're gonna keep that. Okay, the next one is for $82,000, the HBCU tour, if you'll remember, is the one where they went out of the area. And then that impacted 34 students to go visit HBCUs these were graduating seniors. Correct, graduating seniors. if I remember correctly. We can have both. A little bit of juniors as well, okay. For $82,000. Any questions on this one?
I just have note that UTR was gonna assist with fundraising on this.
Yeah.
That was what was mentioned last time.
And wait, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if you can hear
Yeah.
me, but this is for grades 9 through 12.
9 through 12, thank you. I also reached out to funders and they said they would have conversations with us about it. But, a lot of them require matching funds, so
Yeah,
I don't know to what extent we'll.
if I may just share, for me, I'm gonna vote yes, but I would like to say that part of my vote is the idea that we do fundraising for it as well. We try to lower the cost of it
So I was gonna recommend.
personally, but when I'm voting for this, I'm assuming that the cost will go down.
So I'm going to vote no, and I'll tell you why, not because I don't find this to be incredibly important. But I do find it hard to say, let's spend close to $100,000 for 30 students. And we have obviously this larger deficit we have to think about. 82,000 maybe doesn't make a huge difference, but we're barely cutting anything. I would prefer for us to partner, maybe find more funders, bring HBCUs to our districts like many high schools have done, and continue to develop those partnerships. Although I completely understand why this is happening.
So can I propose to reduce the funds in the hopes of funders helping to bring this up to the same amount? Because I do think it's valuable, but if UTR can help out and some other funders will be looking at matching.
Yeah, if the fundraisers are started early on in the year, that can reduce the price. I say I'm in agreement with Mr. De Leon. Not cut the complete program, but just allocate some funds to it and fundraise the rest.
And
Yeah.
just one thing for the committee, in the past, they have tried to fundraise for the event. And like you all have already stated, most funders want us to match funds that have been raised. In addition, in the past, we had not been able to do the trip because even with the fundraising, families were asked to pay a portion of the trip, and some families were denied and couldn't go because they weren't able to come up with a portion. So this was the first time we were able to do the trip just because we funded it. So just putting that out there.
Well, I think that it's either we keep it or not, because what's the point of cutting it in half? And it's already only affecting 30 students. If we cut it in half and we are not able to fundraise it, then, I mean, that's 15, right? So it feels even less impactful, right? So I'm not willing to change my vote, but I do think that I think if we can fundraise it even better. But if majority wants to eventually cut it, then I would say let's just keep it as it is.
I think the trip is important. And I think if we start fundraising now for maybe future trips, then it can be affected that way in the future. But I would suggest for now to keep it. And then if we fundraise, maybe we can expand the number of students.
I think the trip's important, but I want to make sure, how do we make it the height of impactful? How do we make it very impactful?
I'm just thinking about the cost per student. We sent 34 students. That's about $2,500 per student that was spent on the trip. I think there's a more cost-effective way to do it. I know they used a vendor, which probably raised the prices. So perhaps if you could bring planning in-house, you probably could cut that down quite a bit by just taking it on as a district initiative instead of using a vendor. But I've never done it. I don't know the magnitude of it. I'm just thinking out loud.
So instead of using a travel company, make it a district trip like we have, like the district jazz band go, and the district sports go, and the district this go. So it's a different way of funding it.
a different way of coordinating it, because,
Coordinating.
yeah, basically they had one company that planned the housing and the food and the transportation and everything, and I'm sure they put a percentage on top of it. So, yeah.
Middleman, yeah.
I mean, what I would love to see happen is leave it at the 82,000 and do fundraising and double the students that go. I mean, that's what I would love to see.
So see 60 kids.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? And I'm probably still voting yes, but I think, let's ask more questions. It sounds like this is a place we have some curiosity. The goal here says, African-American students have the lowest A through D completion rate. Do we have any data to suggest, I mean, I don't know how long this trip has been happening, but so one data point is not information, but do we have evidence that A through G completion rates are improving, or that even if it's not that some of our students are encouraged to go to HBCUs after the trip? Do you have any sort of additional information to support?
Ms. Smith, do you have any thoughts on that?
Our first year taking students on the trip, but what I
Mhm.
can tell you is that at the end of the trip, we did like an exit survey with the students. And before they came, there was about 50-50 of even wanting to go to college. After they left the trip, 100% of the students said they want to go to college. And about 12 of the 30 actually applied to college after taking the trip. They were seniors who had not previously applied, but they went, looked at the HBCUs, talked to folks, and then saw that they could apply. So they did apply after the trip. And our goal is for the underclassmen, we're going to be meeting regularly with them so that it's not like a one-off, and that we can continue to expose them to different opportunities. So there's no longitudinal data yet, President Zabala.
Well, I'm talking to Clerk Smith Falls. What I would propose then is that we approve it with a caveat that OASA has to partner and raise $40,000 more so that we can increase how many students go and take this partnership. So that's half of what we are approving, right? So we're approving 80. If they get 40,000 more, that's $120,000.
Increases the number of kids at the school.
I would wonder if we could amend that to say, either fundraise or reduce the cost by. So if they can find a different avenue to reduce the cost.
Which is what
Yeah.
Principal Moses was talking about looking at in-house or looking at a different way of having the trip.
Just to let the team know, we did already look at what we can do in-house, because you are absolutely correct. Vendors take additional funding on top of what is already there. So it would take a lot of planning, but essentially we would have to plan out the tours, the trip, the transportation, the hotels, and the airline tickets. So we would do that independently outside of an organization. So I mean, there isn't any reason why we couldn't put together a planning committee for it. But yes, vendors do take additional funds. So we were hoping with these funds next year that we would be able to increase the number of students who attend, as well as try to figure out another way to plan outside of a vendor.
And I would support that the trip itself is beneficial to the students. We have had a chance to participate in a similar trip, and it did change the outlook of students towards African American students towards going to college. So I would support this going forward.
I think one of the things I would want to see with the trip is that one, because it's centering on students 9th, 10th, 11th, and some seniors, but because those of us who've had seniors, we know that 11th grade year is a crucial year to making a decision about where you're going to go or where you want to go, starting with writing the essays and looking at the deadlines and knowing. So the experience for college and exposure to college is really good, but it's time sensitive too. Because starting, in January, when those applications have to be in and the fees have to be in and all the FAFSA and all the things that we're doing. So I appreciate the trip. I want to make sure that it's impactful, meaning that if Howard's deadline is in February, then we have to make sure that we're not taking the trip in April. we have to make sure that we're taking the trip in a manner to where, oh, now I want to go to Howard. I have time to write the essay, I have time to fill out the application, I have time to do the financial aid. So again, it's things that I want to see this grow and be impactful and really get those data numbers that John was talking about, so we can support that trip on a greater high level. I'm complete. President Gonzalez, I think we may be ready for the vote.
Let's do it. Okay, let's vote on the 82,000. Okay, we're good. So we can keep that.
With district support, we want to make sure that we have a lot of district support to make sure this is being fiscally responsible and impactful with our students. I'm complete.
Okay, well, we're gonna move to page 72, but I'm gonna pass the question poll since I'm heading out. So, wish you all good luck. We're almost done.
What page do we have to go to, sir?
To 70.
We're almost done.
We're almost done. 77.
Feel free to
Okay, I can stay till 7:10 the latest, okay.
Great, all right, keep saying at 7:10, let's get through it, people, let's go. No questions.
No question.
questions.
Okay, well, this page is all grant funded, so we can move to 73. Yeah.
Then you'd be great.
71, it's all learning recovery except for another $2,000 supply. And
74 is all learning recovery?
Where did you
What?
go?
Where are you?
Where are you?
We're trying to figure it out,
Okay, we're on 73.
which is,
72. Oh, no, because everything is, I'm sorry, grant. Okay,
College and career.
Allison Trier.
thank you.
Yeah, all of 73 is no, except for 3 that are grant funded.
Oh,
And
Grant funded.
74 is all grant funded.
oh my goodness. Okay, well, we're making progress.
Wait, 74 is all grant?
Oh, no, wait, I'm sorry.
I have a maybe on here,
What is the?
which means
I
I was,
also have a question mark.
yeah, it was one I was like,
Okay,
Okay, never mind, sorry.
so the first two are grants.
First 2 are grant, yeah.
And then the first one I see is School Link, that's not grant funded
Right.
for 99,000.
Okay, that's right. We're in college and career. Okay.
Yeah.
And Huffman, would you like to speak on this one at all? School link.
Uniform support to college career counselors, college career curriculum.
Wasn't it like wasn't it a program that school counselors are using?
Yeah, I think so.
School link.
Yeah. CTE, is that right? I don't keep,
What line?
but I have no
I
idea.
have mine. It's the 4th one down on page 74. It's school link
I wrote keep on all of them.
for 99,000.
I couldn't figure that.
On school link?
I think everybody else from S services left except for Ms. Huffman. Ms. Huffman, are you there? Or Ms. Pryor?
Keisha.
I'm actually, sorry. I was trying to-
Do you know what School Links is?
Say it again.
School Links, do you know what that is?
School links.
It's a
Software.
platform.
It's
Yeah.
it's a program used by our school counselors. It offers like a variety of, think of it like a career platform. And so they essentially are meeting with school counselors. They're doing like a career inventory to see what's supported to them, their skills, their interests. And then it like, if you do it early on, it connects them and helps them to connect to career and college opportunities. There's also different things that the students do independently. So essentially it is a software that our schools use to support college and career readiness amongst our students.
So it's kind of like a LinkedIn for students.
Yeah, I got to look at it and the part that we're using right now, essentially school counselors are tracking the number of times they meet with students, and they use this platform to like have those meetings to understand how students are doing, how their interests, that type of thing.
Ms. Smith, couldn't they do that through Power School? Is that not possible?
I'm gonna say that.
It's a different platform. I'm probably not doing justice to the platform. It's a different platform. So basically, it helps you understand from the student lens, like their career interests, what their career goals, what they want to do post-secondary. They get to do like a whole bunch of different like portals on this platform that would support them in like their future planning. So if you start in 9th grade, the goal would be you start in 9th, you're meeting with the college and career counselor, you're finding out your interests, you're finding out what classes you're in. Is that linked toward what you want to do in the future? So it's a huge platform, but the goal is for college and career readiness at the end of it.
Okay, thank you. Excellent.
Do you know what schools are using it?
Board, I'm gonna ask Dr. Huey to jump on just for a second to answer these questions about college and career. So give me just a second.
I was just gonna suggest that Dr. Huey showed me the platform, but I am not doing it justice right now. And I don't know what schools are using it, Mr. De Leon.
All right, well,
It sounds like Dr. Huey's gonna come on in a minute.
Dr. Hurst, can you add her? Because I can't add anyone to the Zoom. Okay, thank you.
not here
Should we jump to a different one? Wait for them?
yet.
I think you're adding her now.
Yeah,
Are they all to the end? I think so.
I can share while we wait that I did find it on the Clever platform, so it is something that every high school in the district probably has access to. It's accessible on Clever.
I just sent it to her, Larisha.
Okay, I'm on the phone with her, so I'll make sure she's logging in now, and then she'll need to be promoted.
Mary, the funding source, the 000 where's that?
That's unrestricted general fund.
Oh, that's okay.
I just want to remind you guys, we have this other page that was handed out separately.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
It's got two pages to it.
Okay, while we're waiting, she's coming. Can we just approve the WASC one?
Yeah.
That one's for $11,300, same page. That one's required, so it's okay. Yeah, we have to have it. Ken, Shanae, you okay with that? Lillian?
Yep, we need that WASC.
I'm sorry, my apologies. What were you asking? Because I was multitasking here. My apologies.
We're just approving the one that says WASC because it's required. We can't get rid of that one.
Oh, okay,
It makes our diplomas valid.
Yeah.
okay.
And then the last two, it says that they are, last three grant funded, so we just won't even touch those. So really, we're just waiting for.
Dr. Hurst, Dr. Huey's on, if you can promote her.
Okay, yes.
School links and then the one.
Yeah,
right
really,
after
that's
that.
the only one we can look at. The rest of it is all you need.
What about this conferences one? It's paid by Title II. Grant, and that must be CPE. Right? Yeah.
I'm lost. Where are you at?
The one right below school link.
Dr. Huey is on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's all special funding.
We're looking at here, this one. Dr. Huey, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening,
Uh,
board.
We had a question. Could you just tell us very quickly, because I got -3 minutes before I have to be home. School links. Please give us the elevator pitch as to why we should keep it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I thought that we did this during the previous board
We
meeting
did do
about
it,
budget.
Did do it, but we've had 100 meetings since then, so we totally forgot what you said. We apologize.
No
Uh,
worries. I'm happy to do it again. Okay, so the elevator pitch for School Links, you all, is this is a supplementary curriculum that allows us to really align the school counseling experience from school to school district wide. It is a tool that our school counselors will use to ensure that we have a uniform school counseling experience from school to school district wide. We're a really big district and we don't have uniform curriculum for school counselors right now. Everybody's kind of making their own way and doing their own thing. And they have been asking for a long time for a way to really align and be on the same page. And this is one of the ways that they can do that. Not only does it provide some curricular guidance, it also provides some features that we would otherwise have to pay for through multiple other platforms. So for example, can I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. I am going to try and share my screen. Okay, so this is the School Links kind of features page and shows all of the different types of features that come with this platform. So for example, we have been using some of the career interest surveys as well as some of the socio-emotional learning surveys to get baseline data for all of our students as they go into course planning, which was something that you as a board specifically asked for. You asked to make sure that as students are making their course selections for the next year, that we were taking into account students' desires and needs, and that we were gathering data to better ensure that our master schedules were taking into account those students' desires and needs and plans. And so we have been making use of this platform to be able to do that this year as part of our pilot year. We would love to be able to continue to do that. Additionally, this platform allows us to better monitor on a seriously on a day-to-day basis, everybody. This pulls from PowerSchool every night, up-to-date student information so that both students and parents know where they are towards both graduation requirements and A through G requirements. Which is something that we don't currently have the ability to do just via PowerSchool. Additionally, students can use the platform to request transcripts electronically to be sent both to receive transcripts electronically themselves and to be sent to their colleges. That is a feature that we would have to pay tens of thousands of dollars for on an outside platform to get just on its own as a standalone feature. By continuing our service with this platform, we get that as an embedded service. College applications can be done via this platform. Tracking of things like school, pardon me, I'm doing all of this on the fly, you guys. So tracking things like scholarship awards for students can be done via this platform. What we are currently using this platform for that is unique, that we have been looking for a long time, is the ability to host and basically implement our summer internship programs for CTE, which is a required feature of our career and technical education programs as part of our career, our California Partnership Academies grants. We have been looking for a long time for a way to do that well. Now we actually have a job platform that we can interact with our community-based organizations who are willing to host our student interns. You guys, I could go on and on. You gave me 3 minutes and I think I've done my 3 minutes.
Thank you so much for that. We're gonna, thank you so much. Committee, do we have any questions?
I had a
No?
question.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So is this only used for high schools or
So
from
great.
secondary?
That's an excellent question. And thank you so much for asking. And I'm sorry, is it Ms. Vaughn?
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's a wonderful question. So this year we did pilot it with our students in grades 7 through 12. Next year, our proposal is to utilize funding that was provided to us this year to be able to extend that down to the elementary school grades. So that would be grades 3 and up, basically, to provide college and career curriculum universally to all students. And the younger grades would really be around career exploration, socio-emotional learning readiness. And then, of course, at the high school, it gets more into things like resume building and college exploration, college awareness, college applications. Something that I didn't mention earlier is the resume and portfolio building feature that is already embedded in this, that honestly, all of our CTE pathways are already paying for various other services to do what this service does. So this would allow us to really consolidate and not have to pay so many other different services to do the things that this one service does really readily in one house with an easy parent login via Clever. And that's the big thing too, you guys, is like, we don't really have a great way for parents to log in and see how their kids are doing towards graduation and A through G, like on a one push button method. We don't have that right now. This would allow us to do that.
Thank you so much.
One question.
Yes, Ms. Moses.
Question. Hi, Ms. Huey. Is this guided by a course, or is this just a standalone where students use this independently at their leisure?
So it right now it has been a pilot. So students are like, they have open access to it. We have assigned specific tasks to certain grade levels. Like we have set a scope and sequence that is assigned to every student based on their grade level. Right now, it is guided by the work of our school counselors, and it should continue to be guided by the work of our school counselors. So what that means for us right now is that it's guided by the work where we have school counselors. So I think as a former elementary school principal, you're probably putting the puzzle pieces together and realizing we don't have elementary school counselors. So that means that my department is going to really have to work to get more training and information out to our elementary school teachers about how they can best implement and use these features at those lower grades. And I think I know that is something that I have been tasked to do by Dr. Hurst, is to make sure that we are reaching down to our elementary school students to make sure that they have access. And that's going to have to come through our teachers since we don't have elementary school counselors.
So then this is a task that's been put on elementary school teachers to do.
So not just a task, trustee, it is a task that's backed up by curriculum, right? Like this would be a guided activity. So it's not just here's something extra you have to do and you have to figure out. It's here are set activities that you can do. Here's a scope and a sequence. It is something that reduces the burden, honestly, reduces the burden on teachers, right? Like all of our teachers should be doing college and career readiness activities already. But right now, without any sort of a guided curriculum, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And the idea here is to like really reduce that burden and let folks implement something that is kind of universal so that we have a similar experience from school to school, and that it's not something that teachers have to spend hours and hours prepping for.
I have a quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
So you said that, this is to make sure that all of the schools can use the same platform and everything. Are all of our secondary counselors currently using it, or is it something you're just implementing?
So we have been piloting on a limited basis this year. So all of our secondary counselor, well, I would say all of our school counselors, because all of our school counselors are secondary, right? Like that's all we pay for. We only pay for secondary counselors. So all of our school counselors are trained in this. They understand it. They are using it. They are implementing it. All of the students across our district have been using it. As I said, this has been a huge part of our course selection process going into the next year. So all students this year, as part of the course selection process, took some of the assessments that were based in school links, and our school leaders and our school counselors were trained in and then able to utilize the data that they got back from the student assessments to help inform how they planned their master schedule for the next year. And that's something that the board asked us to do.
Thank you very much. I believe we're ready. Ms. Kitchen, do you
Yeah,
have a
one
question?
more thing.
Go ahead.
So that means that if the transcripts are building in it this year, if a transcript needed to be pulled next year for a student last year, you would be able to go into the database and pull transcripts from previous years.
In theory, yes, we are. Is this Mary? I'm
Yes.
okay. I can't see all the faces. I can't see all the faces on my screen, but I heard that voice and I feel like I knew that voice. So Ms. Kitchen, that's a great question. And I have to tell you, we are not there in implementation yet. That would be the work that we would do this summer, provided that this committee allows us to continue this contract. Is we would work with our student information system support team to do it's a significant amount of back-end work to do
Right.
the IT connection that allows us to pull all of the different courses and all of the things out of PowerSchool that we need to get pulled on it would be like a nightly pull, and it's a whole lot of work, and we're ready to do it. We're ready to launch that next phase. That next phase would allow us and allow students and families to see on a real-time basis, how is my baby doing? Are they meeting grad requirements? Are they meeting A through G requirements? Like real time, whenever they log in, they could see it.
Okay, thank you.
But I can see that at PowerSchool, right? Because when I log into PowerSchool, because I'm a mama of 3 kids in the district, and one.
Yeah, I have 2 students in the district, yes.
So one's a senior and she has never used this. So she uses EAOP or she uses something else, but she hasn't used this. But if I log into PowerSchool right now, I can track them if they didn't go to class, if they missed an assignment, if they turned in something late, because it tells me in PowerSchool. So I just wanna, as a parent, that's how I track my students, right? Because I can literally just log on to PowerSchool. But Ms. Principal Moses had a question.
Just a question about cost of the contract. 99,000 is what's written. Would that amount be reduced if you only focused on the high school since the
No,
counselors?
that's the amount for high school.
Oh, that's only the amount for high school.
So would it be a greater
Well,
amount?
Sorry, let me backtrack. That's the amount for our current contract, which is what we're doing this year in our pilot, which is the secondary schools. So that's the, 6th grade through 12th grade. That's the secondary schools.
Okay, any other question?
So do you anticipate the cost going up next year?
If we increase to elementary school, yes.
Okay.
But all secondary schools aren't doing it because it's a pilot.
Correct. We are doing it this year And we have already paid for this year. That is correct. And honestly, our contract takes us through mid-year next year, right? So like, if your decision tonight is that we shouldn't continue this, then our contract already takes us through half of next year. And that would be really disappointing to stop something mid-year that we have started.
Okay, any other questions?
Wait,
Okay.
sorry. Dr. Huey, you made my brain turn on. Wait. So if the contract that's already been approved is through next year, we
It's
shouldn't.
through mid-year because it was it was approved mid-year. We
So
started mid-year this year.
So realistically, what we'd be approving now would be the calendar year of 2024, which would start us through another mid-year cycle the following year.
Yes, yeah.
So we could, another way to do this is we could, I don't know, I'm just saying, I'm
I
proposing.
don't think you can split the contract and do it a half of a year. I mean, I've never done a half a year contract.
Okay, Principal DeLeon, go ahead, sir. You're on mute, sir.
Okay, so how many high schools are currently using this right now?
All of our high schools are currently using this.
Are using it, or they have access to it, or they were expected to use it?
All of the above.
And what data have you collected on what feedback have you gotten from all the different schools that are using this?
So I think that's a really broad question that I'm being asked on the spot when I got called 10 minutes ago to answer. But what I can tell you is that honestly, the feedback from our school counselors is, why haven't we had this before? Can we do more? Give us more access. Your registrars are begging for the opportunity to have something like this to support them with transcripts, sending transcripts to colleges especially. I hear from, when I am called to go before the DLCAPs, they consistently want to have more on-the-spot access to how their students are doing towards A through G requirements, which we don't currently do via our current PowerSchool access. I think that this really, it fits a lot of needs that I keep hearing people ask for. This particular thing does it. That's the only reason why I brought it to us for a pilot.
Okay,
I'm happy to put together a data packet. I just don't have it right now, Jose. I just don't have it right now.
I know, and I apologize that this seems so sudden.
I can provide some analytics for you, Mr. DeLeon.
Yeah, could you please?
Clever portal. Clever shows analytics on how many students are actually logging in through Clever. It shows that all of your students are users, but in the last 28 days, you had 29 logins at Richmond High, and that's total logins, not total students. Now, with that said, I understand the need, and I also understand that this is a pilot, and maybe this isn't the time of year where this is so important because kids have already applied to colleges. So I think that's something to think about as well, like how is it used, how is it distributed? And if it's a great resource, how do we get it so that there's a consistent use of it to justify the $99,000 contract?
So I also just want to thank you for that. I also just want to say, like, in the pilot was not about using the college application features. Like we did not launch with that. Like we have not launched with all of the capabilities of this platform because we launched mid-year. And honestly, we really focused on the board's directive to utilize this platform to get information to inform master schedule. And so that has been our focus, truthfully. We have not utilized the college application feature, so please don't focus on that. That is something that we do want to use going forward. And there's a lot that this platform can do that we haven't even touched yet.
Yeah, so just for clarity, I'm not looking at use of different platforms, but I just looked at the entire year's logins for Richmond High. And since inception, they've had 86 logins.
So if
And
we're going to talk about data usage, I would really like to have the opportunity to also provide data usage. And since, again, this was a last minute call that I did not have the opportunity to prepare for, I'm not prepared to do that right now. I would really love that opportunity to prepare that data and provide it to you.
So how is it being used for master scheduling? So it's
Yeah,
so short sheets do not go into here. And sorry.
They absolutely can. And that's the idea. Moving forward is that we would be able to pull all of our master scheduling information into this platform. Right now, what we did, Jose, was we utilized, honestly, we focused on middle school this year with this platform. We utilized 2 of the surveys to get student information about their interests and their kind of like learning style inventories to inform what they would want to do later. For high school this year, we utilized a different survey. You're familiar with that survey because your students took it. It was outside of the platform this year because we just didn't have the ability to build it within this platform. What you do know about from the high school level this year is the senior survey. So senior survey is an annual survey that we're required to give because I have to provide data for CalPADS every year about our seniors and what they're doing, their student learning experience, what their post-secondary plans are, et cetera. We have been paying annually SurveyMonkey to do that. This year, we built it within SchoolLinks. It will live within SchoolLinks going forward. If the board continues this contract, we will be able to, again, house multiple things that we are required to do within one platform that we would otherwise be paying for multiple outside contracts.
But what contracts are we paying right now to do this work?
So
What contracts will we cut because this is going to take over?
So your CPAs, again, this is kind of hard doing it on the fly, but your CPAs across the district, so I'm talking to you because you're here, your CPAs pay for several contracts that to house your portfolios, right? Portfolios is a big thing at your school. Your CPAs are paying a couple of different companies to do their portfolios. This platform allows everybody to do portfolios on one platform. If we were to do electronic transcripts, which we don't do right now, we would have to pay an outside company to do electronic transcripts. So this lets us do something that we have never done before. As I said, we do senior surveys. As a district, we pay SurveyMonkey every year to do senior survey. One of the things your counselors have been asking for the past 5 years that I've been in my position is the ability to host our senior survey in Spanish. We would have to pay an additional fee to be able to do that in SurveyMonkey. And for all kinds of reasons that are too complicated to get into right now, we haven't been able to make that happen. This program does it right away. It's already active. We can not only do it in Spanish, we can do it in whatever language the student needs. It's already active and it's already happening. So those are just a couple of examples.
Thank you so much, Ms. Huey. I appreciate it.
Trustee Smith-Folds, you can call me Dr. Huey.
Thank you. Mr. De Leon, Principal De Leon, you have any questions?
It seems like this is the forward-thinking technology. Is that a true statement, Dr. Huey?
Yes, sir. That is absolutely the idea.
That is only being piloted right now, and only a couple of features of it are being used.
That is absolutely true. We have really only used it, like we've scratched the surface this year. So the data that Coordinator Moses pulled is it's scant, right? Because we've really only scratched the surface with it. And I really don't want you guys to think that that's all there is and that's all that's happening. There's just so much more that's available, and your counselors are super excited about it, everybody. This could be great.
Thank you so much. Committee, are we ready to take a vote?
Honestly, I'm not. I would
What
like
would you
to,
need?
I'm wondering if we could pull this one back. I'd like to talk to my counselors a little bit. If that's,
Principal Moses, are you in agreement?
Yeah, it sounds like it's useful, but it's only as useful as the people using it. So if we can find out if there is really, a large use of it, then that would justify the expense. So I would agree.
Principal De Leon?
I would need more information. I need to know what's the buy-in from the counselors and from the registrars on using, because we're doing it now. And it seems like the only app that we're paying for is SurveyMonkey, and everything else is being done through. Is that incorrect? What other apps are we paying that does the same? That does.
Well,
some
let's just, Dr. Huey, just give me 1 second. Principal De Leon,
Need
Dr.
more
Huey.
information.
all right, need more information. Thank you, Principal De Leon. Ms. Vaughn, will you want to vote or you need more information?
Honestly, I'm just on the fence. I would like to get clarifying information as well.
Thank you.
I'm not ready to vote.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ryan?
More clarifying information.
Thank you so much. Ms. Kitchen?
that's one of these, right?
Yeah, I'm fine, whenever anybody's ready.
Okay, so you would be fine voting tonight or more information?
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Hurst, did you notate the information that the committee needs to make a decision on this?
Yeah, well, it sounds like overall that people are asking for more information to make a better informed decision. I hear
So, data?
Dr. Huey, yeah. I hear Dr. Huey saying, even though she's been here before, this is a different type of question. She would like to have the opportunity to bring some data for all of us to consider so we can make a better informed decision.
And did you capture those questions from Principal De Leon and the Principal Moses? You captured those
Yeah.
questions? Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
Wait, can we shout out Dr. Huey, because that's a lot for her to do. She just has to come back to her house to do this, so, and you moved me from a no to a maybe, so.
So we apologize that it seems like it's a hot seat right now. Just we're literally going to say yes or no right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. I already did this, you guys. But I would love to have the opportunity to give you all the information that you need. I think that this is really valuable. Again, like I'm a parent in the district as well. This matters. So I would love to come back and give you whatever information you need.
Thank you. Moving to the next one. Principal De Leon, your hand's still up, friend. You want to take that down?
I will take it down.
Thank you. Ms. Kitchen, what's the next contract that we're on?
So the rest of the page is all, special funding, so,
Okay.
and actually the next page is all grant funded also. So we could move to BAPA.
And that is page
76.
Okay.
And we have 3 items on there that, Pat gave us.
Okay. So which ones do we need to discuss?
So he's giving us, the, JW Pepper for 1,500.
Okay.
The, Bronstein music for 1297.25. and the A&G music for 2,000.
Okay, 129,725 we're getting back, and the last one, 2,000?
Was A&G music for 2,000.
All right, anything else? That's it, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 items at the bottom that are yes, that he wants to keep.
Those are the replacements of the instruments.
Yes.
Okay, replacement for lost or stolen instruments. Let's take all 3 of them together. Can we do that? So replacement for lost and stolen instruments, the alto sax for elementary school, clarinets for elementary school, and flutes for elementary school. We want to vote to keep, not keep, or we can live with it. So let's take a vote. Everyone vote now, please.
So I have a quick question on that.
Oh, go ahead, Principal De Leon.
So, the question on this, and this is a Prop 28 question. Is this something that Prop 28 can cover sooner than later? Because if the answer is that Prop 28 is not gonna come till October, then I would vote, yes, we need to replace these instruments. And I don't know if there's anybody that can answer that question.
Dr. McIntyre, can you answer that question?
Could we use Prop 28 to pay for this, for stolen instruments?
Replacement instruments.
Not stealing. So. Could you? Yes, but here, let me give you a caveat. Prop 28 says you have to spend at least 80% of each school site's revenue on staff. So that leaves like chicken scratch. So, you know, it may or may not get as far as you need it to get at each school site.
Clarifying question. So all Prop 28 monies are being distributed to schools. There isn't any central Prop 28.
That is
budget.
correct.
Okay.
No central pot.
Principal De Leon, did that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Anyone else? Do we have any other questions? No? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote. Okay, all right, looks like we're keeping those. We are now on page 77. Let's see.
There's a 40,000.
Page 77 fell off.
So page 77, the first one is repair for elementary and secondary music programs, band, elementary, middle, and high school. Blanket purchase order, instrument repair. No questions to the vote?
There's no.
Did we vote on that one? Okay, looks like that was a yes to keep. Let's go to the next one, culturally responsive coaching for elementary music teachers, a consultant contract for $20,000. Question?
Come and see, I'm like.
You did it fast. No question to the vote? Oh, sorry, Principal De Leon, you have a question?
Is this an elementary school a coaching model, or is this district wide?
It's elementary only.
I have in my notes here that it's either this one or the next one, is PD for 80 teachers, 80. Where I got that, I have no idea.
You wrote it down.
But I wrote it down.
You get any feedback from the teachers on the effectiveness of the consultants?
What was that, Jose?
Have any feedback from the teachers on the effectiveness of the consultants doing the training?
I have not asked them this, but I'll just share that I personally am voting down professional developments because they don't directly affect kids, so that's a me.
I can tell you that Super Achievement is a consultant that's used widely throughout the district.
Will they be mad?
I can add to that, that this is one-on-one coaching for teachers who might be struggling. I don't know how effective it is. I don't know how Pat is using it, but I do know the vendor and she has been effective for teachers who struggle with classroom management. Now, does she see 80? Likely not. She was probably seeing teachers on an as-needed basis.
Principal De Leon, would you need more information or are you willing to cast a vote?
Now we need I think it's ready to vote.
You're ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Trustee Smith Folds,
Yes.
Pryor. I was gonna ask if you could pass on this because I wanna, I'm gonna contact Dr. Chilcott to see if this is something that can go under educator effectiveness in the grant, because it is professional development.
Great. Okay, so go ahead.
That being said, I mean, something else could go into educator effectiveness, and I just wanna, I said it already to this group, but for me, my decision-making is coming down to, does it directly affect the student? And these are, I've cut so far PD for principals and for teachers, and so while it could go into the educator effectiveness grant, so could something else, right?
I believe the brunt of educator effectiveness is for professional development. So yes, I mean, other PD could go in there, but let me.
I mean, the jump and keep, I apologize.
No worries.
So Ms. Pryor, your request is that we could just hold on for a minute so you could talk to Dr. Chilcott. John, are you willing to hold that?
I'm ready to vote.
You're ready to vote,
Yeah.
okay. Is anyone else ready to vote or are we able to hold it?
I would be willing to hold it.
Willing to hold it, okay. Principal De Leon, willing to hold or ready to vote?
We can hold on Chilcott, see Dr. Chilcott says.
Ms. Vaughn, hold or hold, okay. Mr. Ryan, hold or vote?
Hold.
Okay, so we'll hold on that one. We'll hold on that one. Dr. Hurst, you can make a note that we need Mr. Chilcott to come back on that one. PD on arts integration for classroom teachers.
Now, I have a note on that one that says continuing something Richmond Art Center started, teaching classroom teachers to integrate art into instruction. But I noticed that Richmond Art Center is the next one.
Mhm.
So, not sure if Richmond Art Center started the year and then Rice took over.
Do we have any
I'm not
clarification?
clear.
Anyone on the line to give us clarification about that?
Any clarification on that one, Dr. Pryor?
I'm sorry, I was multitasking. Can you repeat the question?
I have a note on the Rice Center that continuing something Richmond Art Center started, teaching classroom teachers to integrate art into instruction. But I noticed that the next line item is also Richmond Art Center. So I'm wondering if Richmond Art Center started the year and then Rice continued, or I just wanted clarification.
Let me find out. I'm not clear about this one.
So we need to wait for clarification on that, correct, Ms.
So
Kitchen?
that would be Rice and back.
Rise and the Richmond Art Center. So
Yeah.
the 15,400 and the 12,650. Dr. Hurst, we can get more clarification around that.
Yes.
We are at blanket purchase order for $12,000. CNL Music,
Yeah, that's repair for violins.
that is violence. Okay, so one was the band instruments and then this is the orchestra instrument. All right, are we ready to vote? Any questions? No, let's go ahead and vote. This one stays. Thank you very much, committee. The next one, we're on mentoring coaching for middle school, high school band directors. This East Bay Center for Performing Arts. It is $9,999. Support for teachers in impacted areas, Richmond, Helms, Dijon, and John F. Kennedy High School.
Right, so this is the high school version of the super achievement that was for
For the
elementary.
elementary. Principal De Leon,
Yeah,
you had a question?
yeah, yes, are these matching funds or is this a straight contract?
Contract.
Because I thought that there was a $10,000 matching fund grant with the East Bay Center to do that type of coaching. Because
That's funded through LCAP, so I'm not sure.
from my band teacher, those $10,000 or 9,999 are very beneficial for supporting band programs. And we saw a big benefit of that orchestra and band. It filled up our gym with over almost 700 parents in the stands watching music happen. So I would say yes to this.
Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Is this another one that could possibly be switched to grant funding? Ms. Pryor?
Sorry, say it again. I was just talking with Ms. Huff.
The comment was made on super achievement that perhaps it could switch to grant funding. Is East Bay Center for Performing Arts also possible for that?
Mentoring and coaching for band directors, I can inquire if that would be an allowable expenditure. I'll do that.
Thank you so much. Anybody else? Ms. Kitchen, would you like to wait to hear the increase?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Principal De Leon, are you okay with waiting?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan, will you please wait waiting until we get more information?
Yes, okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Vaughn, are you okay with waiting until we get more information about if it can be grant funded? Thank you. John, are you okay with waiting?
Ready to vote.
You're ready to vote, okay. The majority is gonna wait on this one, we'll wait on this one and bring it back. Dr. Hurst, we have you bringing back, culturally responsive, we have you bringing back the 15-4 and the 12-650 on RISE and the Richmond Art Center. We have you bringing back the 9,999 on the East Bay Center for Performing Arts with the support for high schools. We have Ms. Huey bringing back her information and that's it, correct?
Right, we have to vote on the last item on there.
Let's vote on the last item, piano tuning and repair. So we have already voted in the affirmative for the band instruments. We have voted in the affirmative for the orchestra instruments, and now we're looking for the piano tuning. Can we, any questions? Any questions? No? Let's go to the vote. So we are yes for the tuning of those. Okay, so that's a yes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are 7 minutes early. Thank you, everyone. The next meeting will be on May 16th from 9:30 to 2 o'clock at Alvarado. Committee, is there anything else you would like to see? And
We
we'll
do
add
need
that
to do these 2 pages.
Oh, pickles. We'll do that at the next one, Fran. Anything else you would like to see on the agenda? Anything else that you would like to be added? Do we need anybody from central office to be here to make sure that those questions are answered? We know we have Ms. Huey coming back. We know we have either Mr. Martin or someone from that office coming back with VAPA. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, so we're starting off by answering all these questions that we didn't get answers to.
And we want to make sure we
Bringing
do
back
that vote.
information,
Yes.
so making sure the appropriate personnel are here from Ed Services.
Yes,
Is there another department that we want to see?
so we know if VAPA, we need to have VAPA, you need to have,
Yeah, I mean, like human resources.
In addition
so
to.
in addition to that, Kitchen, what's on that page?
So we do have the social emotional portion of.
Oh, still have that?
So
Okay.
Ms. Smith would be here?
But would that take the
No,
amount of time?
No,
We
we
didn't,
can get all that done in
Only 2
the front.
pages.
we didn't finish that, did we?
We finished
We
that.
finished
Yes,
that.
We finished
We
that.
completed spec.
What's our next one that we're looking at on the 16th? besides all the work that we're doing now.
It would be HR.
HR, human resources.
Okay, so have them be prepared.
Yes, have human resources be prepared, and we're 9:30 to 2:00. Remember, we have a lunch break in between there. Anything else that anyone needs to see? If you have any questions, please forward them to, Dr. Hurst, President Gonzalez Hoy, and I. We need to make sure that, you guys, as far in advance as you know, the students email, I'm gonna be on Zoom or I'm gonna be in person, so we can plan for that, okay? That just helps us with the planning of, the catering that I do. Well, that's not the district, that's not the. All right, anyone else? Is that it?
I just want to tell you our total cut total.
Absolutely. Let's see if yours matches mine.
850,342.60.
It does not match mine. So mine was, mine was $108,960.
Oh, you just did today. Mine is the combined. of
Oh, wait, tell me
everything.
the whole combined total.
$850,342.60.
Great, yours is a lot better than mine. Okay, so the combined total, ladies and gentlemen, $850,342.60. We are moving slowly, but we are moving. Let's see, let's keep going, and we appreciate everyone. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned at 7:56. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Good night.